You're listening to Beyond the Plate with Andrew Kaplan. This sounds so weird. You're listening to Beyond the Plate with Cappy.
Hey everyone, this is Cappy, and you're listening to Just the Plate, a production of Beyond the Plate. Just the Plate is a short segment where chefs describe a dish or a recipe that is meaningful to them. Last week, you heard from Chef Spike Mendelsohn. Spike is a chef, restaurateur, TV personality, culinary consultant, food policy advocate, father, surfer, cookbook author, blah, blah, blah. I joke. In 2008, Spike opened up his first restaurant in his culinary empire on Washington, D.C.'s Capitol Hill called Good Stuff Eatery, which quickly became a favorite of political elites, including President Barack Obama. He has since opened a pizza place called We the Pizza and a taqueria called Santa Rosa Taqueria, all on Capitol Hill. If you missed last week's episode with Spike, please be sure to check that out. But for now, Spike is going to walk you through how to make a dish from the Greek side of his family called Keftedes. Keftedes are essentially Greek meatballs. This is a fun one because I know Spike is very passionate about food, especially when he's describing a dish that he ate or that he cooked. And he gives some great tips along the way when you're rolling meatballs, what type of meat to cook, and herbs to use, and cheese to use, and when. And it's chock full of information, to be honest. But this is one of those episodes or one of those dishes that you're really going to want to cook after you hear it. Kind of like all these Just the Plate episodes, haha. I'll stop talking here, but this is Just the Plate. Hi, Spike.
How you doing, sir?
Good, man. How are you?
I just listened to the podcast this morning on my way to work.
Did you?
I did.
That's exciting.
It is. It's really good. It's really good, man. You're doing a good job with those.
Thanks, dude. I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, we've had a couple good comments coming in on it. Some good stuff. Honestly, like when I was sitting down editing it, I'm like, shit, man. I'm like, well, obviously we could have sat for twice as long. We always have good combo about the business, but I think there's some good stuff in there, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, man. All right. Well, I am Chef Spike Mendelsohn, chef, restaurateur, author, policy advocate. I am primarily a DC chef. I have Good Stuff Eatery, We the Pizza, and Santa Rosa Taqueria, all fast casual restaurants on Capitol Hill. One of my favorite recipes that I love cooking that has a little history to it is my Nona's Keftedes. Keftedes is just a Greek meatball that's that's kind of stewed in tomato sauce very slowly. And I remember as a young child kind of sitting on top of a stepping stool with my sleeves rolled up. And I would be making these meatballs with my grandmother, and we would be cooking them off. And we'd, what we really loved to enjoy them with was some bread and some feta cheese. And more importantly, my grandmother would drink a couple of bottles of white wine while eating this dish. So to run you through the recipe, we get a mixture of meat. It could be beef and veal or pork and veal, or all three if you'd like. You just work with your local butcher and get a nice blend of meat. Obviously, like having a nice little fat content in that meat always is helpful. But I'd just get maybe a pound or two. And we won't really talk too much about amounts. One of the things about this recipe is we really never measured anything out. We would just kind of eye out proportionally what we thought would work, and then we would adjust. So what you'll need is you'll need your ground beef or meat, whatever it is, the mixture. And then we'll usually take one bunch of parsley, so a nice fresh bunch of flat leaf parsley that we would just rough chop off the stem. And then after rough chopped off the stem, we would mince it very fine. Very important that this step is that it's very fine. You don't want really any leaves of parsley in the mixture. You want just like specks of green that represent the parsley. So it's really evenly distributed. So make sure you get that chopped and just hang it out. Then we'd probably go with 2 eggs. 2 eggs and 2 yolks is what we would do. So we'd crack those, and you can either save the 2 whites for a meringue later on or something like that, baked Alaska. So then we'd have that. Then we would have probably a cup of toasted breadcrumbs. Then we would do this pommade process where you take a nice white bread and you cut the crusts off of it, and then you would large dice the bread and you would soak it in milk. That's what pommade is.
Where's that term derived from? Is that a Greek?
It's a
French.
It's a French word. I mix my cuisine and terminology a lot. I'm sure there's a Greek term for it.
I've never heard of that. That's interesting.
Pommade can also be like the whipped butter, like your butter that's just sitting out for like rillettes. But yeah, so it's pretty much milk bread, right? You've heard about that, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to soak it too early, so you kind of want to reserve this towards the end after you've mixed everything. And I'll get to that afterwards. But so just make sure you have your milk and like a half a loaf of diced bread, crustless. So at that point, we would also want some lemons. And then what I like to do in my Keftedes as well is I like to saute some diced onions. So I'll just dice like a whole onion, really nice and fine, and then I'll make sure just to like caramelize that over a little bit of oil, and then season that with a little bit of salt and some pepper. And then you can throw some spices in there, just like a little pinch of cayenne. This is where the process where I throw in like a nice handful of oregano in there, and I just get that sauteed. I don't want it burnt, right? So it's like low and slow. And then you set that aside to cool for a little bit. And then once it's cool, you take that mixture and you start folding it into your meat, right? And after you fold that in, then you want to go ahead and fold the parsley, that really, really fine parsley that you had chopped up. Make sure you squeeze this all through, right? And you can use gloves if you want. The process of this is that you just want to aggravate and create myoglobin within meat. And that just happens by like moving meat around pretty much. It just makes it sticky. And that's going to be what kind of forms your ball, right? So after you've got your onion mixture in there, now you folded your parsley in there, and now we're going to go put those breadcrumbs in there, and we'll continue to fold. And then this is the process where you just want to make sure you now soak your white bread for about 30 seconds. Make sure you dip it all through. And after it's soaked, you want to take the bread out and squeeze it. Don't squeeze it too hard because you still want to have it in chunks. But the process is you just want to, rid of the excess milk that's in the bread. Then you want to put that into your meat mixture, and then slowly start to fold and incorporate the milk bread in there. Then what I like to do is I like to take a nice whole lemon, and I like to make sure I get the whole zest off of it, making sure I don't really get any of the pith that would be bitter. So you just want to get the outside, just nice fresh zest all through there. And then you want to add about a cup and a half of Parmesan, grated Parmesan, right? You want to load this thing up with Parmesan. Then mix that all up. And at that point, you should see like this really nice, at that point, you would definitely want to have like maybe a little teaspoon of oil, right? You want to apply a little oil in there just to shine it all up and make it less sticky. And then you want to test one. Right? You never want to roll your meatballs without testing one. So I usually just do like a nice little patty, and I sear it and taste it. And if it's a little underseasoned, I add more salt and some more pepper. You don't really want to have underseasoned meatballs because it's not like you're throwing salt on top of these after they come out. So while this is all sitting and the flavors are permeating and getting really, really delicious, we're going to, make a quick flash tomato sauce. And flash tomato sauce is some onions, some garlic, all chopped up. I like to keep mine rustic style. You don't want to lose a fingernail or anything. So just chop, 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 saute. Then I use San Marzano crushed tomatoes. Let's take those out. We sauteed onions, we sauteed garlic, it's all salt and pepper. Then we're going to add some tomato paste. And then, we're going to cook out the raw tomato paste. Season it a little bit more. It's going to start to stick towards the bottom of the pan. You want to have like medium heat at this point. And then you want to take some of my grandmother's white wine and deglaze the pan with that, right? Let that just cook down. Then add the San Marzano crushed tomatoes. Then add a whole thing of garlic. Add some whole sticks of basil in there. Get some flavor in this bad boy. Add some oregano. Add some fresh crushed tomatoes if you want. Just make a nice, light, bright tomato sauce. Nothing too crazy. Nice and simple. So then back to the meatballs. Now, like the flavors permeated, everything's kind of like inside this. You want to have a nice cold bowl of ice and use gloves. And what you want to do is you want to dip your hands in ice, water, then roll a meatball. Dip your hands in ice, water, then roll another meatball. And just do that process until you've rolled all your meatballs. And then this is, the big question. You can either sear and stew or go right to stew. I find that when you sear your meatballs and then stew, you end up with a little bit of a tougher meatball, and that could be the texture you're looking for. But most, I would say, they just want a nice stewed meatball that is spoon tender. Just put the meatballs in your tomato sauce, throw your oven at 375 degrees. Throw your oven at 375 degrees first, then put your meatballs in your tomato sauce and put that pan in the oven and let that cook for about 45 minutes. Make sure you just kind of constantly baste your meatballs, and then you have a meatball and bread and feta cheese. And that, Mr. Cappy, is our recipe, Keftedes.
Awesome. Did she just stew, or did she ever sear, or did you do the searing part?
No. Grandma just stewed. You have to remember, Grandma loved the white wine, so she just put the meatballs in the pan, set it, and forget it.
And so Parmesan cheese went in the meatball. So it comes out of the oven in this delicious like red sauce that's gotten like kind of rich and cooked out. And these meatballs are probably tender and flavorful and incredible. And the red sauce probably picked up some of the flavor of those meatballs. How are you serving it? How does she serve it?
Well, she just served it. So these meatballs are best eaten out of pan at room temperature. So she would put the pan on the dining room table,
just leave it there
on a plate warmer, and she would just leave it there. But we would never eat these meatballs right out of the oven, right? Like super hot. They would get to room temperature because that was the best temperature to eat these at, and it's very true. Like there's certain foods at certain temperatures, right, that are the best. Like smoked salmon. Like there's a perfect temperature to eat that at. Is it too cold? No. Is it warm? No. It's like there's a perfect temperature to eat that at. But and every kind of dish has that temperature. I don't think people think about that enough. So these are room temperature for best flavor, because then like you actually you'll get the lemon zest out of there. You'll get flavors out of there where you wouldn't if it was too hot.
Right. And is feta being crumbled over it after?
No. You don't. Feta really usually in Greek tradition. I mean, you'll see it on a nice block of Greek salad, but it's usually like a side dish, right? Where it's just like a nice big side dish, and it's kind of our extra salt, if you will, through cheese. So it's like you kind of just like pick a little bit of feta, you go with a little bit of meatball, you dip a little bit of bread, and that you like that. Feta is like, it just gets too warm, right? Feta isn't delicious. I mean, feta could be delicious warm. I think it's best cold.
I love it.
How's that sound?
It sounds amazing.
Are you making them tonight?
I probably am going to make them soon.
Well, Cappy, it's been real, man. Can't wait to see you soon.
Thanks again. I appreciate it. Find more on Spike Mendelsohn at chefspike.com. This episode was produced by myself along with Ian Cohen and Joel Yeaton. You can find me and keep up to date with this podcast across all social media platforms at On Cappy's Plate, or go to beyondtheplatepodcast.com. Please rate, review, and or subscribe to this podcast on your listening site of choice. Thank you for listening to Just the Plate, a production of Beyond the Plate. I'm Cappy.